Hello, hello. Editing Ben here, and I have some fun announcements before we get started. In honor of NaNoWriMo, I'll be hosting my own productivity sprint next Monday night. I'll be starting an hour earlier at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, and that will allow me to go for a full hour and a half to 2 hours, more or less, with my productivity sprints. I promise to be a lot more awake and engaging than I was during my last productivity sprint, which took place at 3 a.m., and that was a tough one. But that's not all the news I have. I'll start off the productivity sprints with a cover tease for my second novel, and I'll be ending it with a full-on cover reveal. You know what? Executive decision. I'm excited to show off my second book's cover, so I'm going to give the cover tease right now. This is a partial of what's to come in the sequel to Falling Through called Expanding Cracks. One last thing, and then it's off to my regularly scheduled episode. I'm planning to release the book on Saturday, December 3rd, and that's coming up soon. I'll be hosting a book launch party on that day at noon Eastern Time. Again, that is book launch party for Expanding Cracks, the sequel to Falling Through, on Saturday, December 3rd at noon Eastern Time. If you're thinking about skipping this party because it's only been 2 months since my last book launch party, don't. It will be at least a full year before I get to another book launch, as book 3 is taking a lot of time to develop as I want it to. Anyways, come on out. There will be games, there will be prizes. We'll be celebrating all things Falling Through and Expanding Cracks and just the Into the Void series in general. That is Saturday, December 3rd at noon Eastern Time. I hope to see you there. Hello, hello. I'm Ben Pick, and thank you for joining me in Running to Write, where I give questionable writing advice through writing metaphors. Today I'm looking back on all the choices I made in publishing my first novel. What did I learn in the month and a half since? Did it go well? Let's find out. I made plenty of mistakes when publishing, and I also did a lot of things that were right, or at least worked out well for me. These are the 5 biggest lessons I've learned since publishing my debut novel. Number 1, book launch parties. Do them. The wonderful Barrett Laurie hosted my book launch party, and for an hour and a half, I got to share all things Falling Through. After years of working to get my book published, Barrett created and fostered such a positive and encouraging experience. I was excited to talk all things Falling Through and to tease what was to come in the story and later on the series, as well as show why it means so much to me. Even then, I was overwhelmed and inspired by the sheer number of people who showed up to the virtual book launch. For book 2, I am toying with the idea of hosting a physical book launch party in addition to the virtual one. Within book 2, I used a real location, and I think it would be really cool to host a party nearby there. We'll see if I can pull off that stunt. Regardless, even having one other person who is excited for my book that isn't directly related to me was humbling. I don't want to discount my family's support, as they always had my back, though I was stunned to see how many of my friends and coworkers and friends of friends showed up to have fun at the virtual book launch. Number 2, maintain momentum. Compared to all of my loftiest expectations and goals, I had an explosive book launch. I had no idea how many people believed in me and wanted to support me. And thank you. Friends, friends of friends, coworkers, neighbors, family members I haven't seen in years, you name it. They all showed up for my book launch and inhaled Falling Through in the first few weeks. Then I didn't have a follow-up plan for building on that initial success of that weekend. I was so focused on getting my book out there that I didn't consider what to do when it actually was. I sputtered around for the first month and experimented with various different marketing campaigns that were available to me. There was a loose plan, which is not a good one. I held too much in reserve. My original plan was to put my ebook on sale for 99 cents so that way I could qualify for various book distribution and marketing campaigns. For those interested in what's available, St. Houston has some wonderful breakdown videos where she evaluates these various services, free or otherwise. I relied heavily on our promotion series so that I could stir up interest in my novel. Unfortunately, the sale change didn't go through and Ingram Spark never lowered the price of my book. This meant that I had to scramble for all the various promotional and marketing services that I signed up for, where I needed to have my book at 99 cents in order to be allowed into their distributions, or otherwise piss off a lot of their readers. It did work out, and I was able to push back the start dates of the various promotions without incurring additional costs, but it did delay that marketing campaign. I've been taking detailed notes in my other podcast called the Self-Publishing Tips and Tricks Show, which I do with SD Houston and Morgan Lee. At the time of recording this episode, I am editing my second book, and I'm doing a lot of research based on the various interviews that we've had on that show to try and better market and promote that second book. I'm going to use my second book as a springboard to garner interest in the first, and I'm hoping that it becomes a feedback loop where the fact that the second book exists gets people attracted to the first one, and then once they read the first one, they maintain interest in the series. I'm looking into getting a booth at Balticon, and I'll start doing research in other regional and local conferences that I can go to in person. One of the best pieces of advice was that it's a lot more effective in terms of time and money investment to try and sell in person, as opposed to adding my book to a large email distribution that gets sent out to tens of thousands of people. Sure, that is a very large list, but I'm just one of 100 books, and they send emails out like that every day or every week or every month. So it's very easy to get lost. Whereas selling my book in person allows me to make a lot more direct connections to readers. There are an infinite number of possibilities, and I need to do much more research to figure out what makes the most sense for me and my series. I'm practicing various methods and tools with the first book, so I'm better prepared when publishing the second. That way I can build on that momentum and get a steady trickle of sales even when I'm not actively promoting. Number 3, difficult tools. I created a video to show the ins and outs and how I used Ingram Spark to publish, and you can see that video right here on this link. Ingram Spark was an incredibly powerful tool, yet it was also highly limited. I've come across so many issues in using Ingram Spark, and in sharing my experiences I found that other authors had similar problems. Worse, plenty of them had other issues that I've never seen, so now I'm worried about what's going to happen if I keep using Ingram Spark. I already mentioned how Ingram Spark failed to apply the sales discount, forcing me to submit the exact same request again and delay my marketing campaigns. There were also plenty of delays in people receiving their physical copies of the book. Depending on when people pre-order the book, there could be anywhere from a 3-day to a 2-week delay from the publishing date when they receive their physical copies. As I knew many of the people who purchased those physical copies, I was able to talk to them, and it wasn't much of an issue as far as I know. They were willing to wait, and I was more than happy to send them digital copies in the meantime. Using Ingram Spark created many unknowns in terms of when a product would be ready, or even if it will be ready. Be prepared to learn all new limitations in whatever tool you're using. There may be printing issues where the colors are duller than they have been previously, or the alignment may be completely off, or books might be destroyed in transit. Whatever it is, expect to get no support from customer support. Most of the issues I've had with Ingram Spark, when I reached out to their customer support, they were unable to find out what the source of the problem was, to say nothing of actually resolving it. The best advice I can give for using various tools from Ingram Spark to Draft to Digital to Amazon KDP is to learn the ins and outs, to experiment, and to not be afraid to make mistakes. Also, to assume that whatever customer support is available, that it's non-existent. So you'll be reaching out to the community for help, or assume that you'll be doing it alone. Number 4, learn and adapt. I published my first book and took detailed notes on the steps I followed and the choices I made. There are notes on alternative methods and the reasons why I made those choices and what I can do in the future, or pain points that I want to avoid next time. All of my experiences are a sample size of 1. When I publish my next book, I'm going to be following a lot of the same steps, though I plan to streamline the process and improve upon or not make the same mistakes I did the last time. This will give me a better understanding of what to expect. That way I can experiment more and branch out with book number 3. One friend's advice was to use Ingram Spark to publish wide, which is what I'm currently doing, with the exception of Amazon. There I should be using Amazon KDP so that I can use their internal services and tools to better control how my book is being distributed in Amazon and get much better and more accurate and faster metrics. The book will be linked together through the ISBN, so in theory, everything should work out. I have no idea how it's going to work, but I'm going to be doing more research to figure out if that's a possibility for publishing my third book. Honestly, I'm not certain if the benefits outweigh the difficulties in managing my book from 2 different locations. If any of you out there have gone through this method of publishing, please let me know how it works and walk me through it. I really want to know. However, if I do publish using both Ingram Spark and Amazon, I may be able to get the best of both worlds, where I can publish wide with Ingram Spark, as well as get detailed reports through Amazon, as well as take full advantage of their promotional support. Number 5, rinse and repeat. Publishing one book is a major accomplishment. Even so, on day 1, I already had people asking about my next book. While managing the marketing campaign and pre-orders and getting everyone hyped for the book that's going to come out, devote time to writing the next book or editing it if it's in a later stage. Bringing on that next book or knowing when it's going to be published, even if it's a standalone and not directly related to the current series that was just published, gets readers interested in us as authors. From the moment we publish one book, be ready to talk about the next. It may be over a year away, but having something to discuss is better than responding with a blank stare. And lastly, the honorable mention of time. There is never enough of this double-edged sword. Writing one novel is an incredible time commitment. Therefore, expect to spend that same amount of time marketing, promoting, and getting readers interested in our works. I want to get my book into as many hands of compatible readers as possible. That requires patience and practice and dedication. In other words, I need to promote my first book while editing my second, while writing my third, while generating writing to write content, all while managing my day job and living in general. The amount of time needed to write is a hefty burden, but it's one that's well worth it. I have been thrilled to find so many people who care about following through as I have. Whether you found the book to be a masterpiece or barely passable, thank you for offering up your own time to read it and discuss it and celebrate what was and is a labor of love for me. Those are the 5 most important lessons I've learned after publishing my debut novel. I am Ben Pick, and thank you for joining me in Running to Write. If you enjoy my publishing retrospective, please press those like and subscribe buttons. Let me know in the comments about the best book launch you've been a part of, either as an author or supporter. I post my writing and writing progress on Instagram and Twitter as Running to Write, so be sure to follow me and join in with your own thoughts. There's also my Writing to Write monthly newsletter for all things running and writing related. I include an indie author showcase to highlight the books I've read this past month, and you might find your next TBR in there. There's pictures of my dog too, because Rufus is a good boy. I finally have a Ko-fi page. If you like, you can support this channel. For that, you'll get the outtakes of my various videos as I shout profanities at the camera and trip over basic words. Full disclosure, once I set that up, I'm going to be filtering those outtakes into my newsletter, so the Ko-fi supporters will be getting advanced screenings as well as other benefits that I have listed on that page. See you next time. Until then, consider the greatest milestone you've accomplished and how it's made you better.